first say congratulations to all of the honorees, Dr. Curtis and Robert Crawford, George Johnson, Sarah Brooks, and Floyd Merriweather, and all of you who have come to support that. It's always a beautiful, beautiful thing to get together with our own to say thank you to our own. And for me to even talk a little bit about Billy Curtis and Dr. Curtis gives me some pride as well. I have to say though, when Coy asked me, I told him I did not hang with Dr. Curtis. I did not run with him. Many of you in this audience probably knows him a lot well and could tell better stories about him. You're a little older than I am, but you probably could do it. Now, I could talk about Bobby Crawford. I'm not going to do that because I'm not introducing him. But those of you who know, Bobby's a lot older than I am. But I'm not going to do that. But I understand that one reason that we have such a big crowd is you're honoring him. But half his family came. You're going to fill the place up.
Find somebody to agree with that. The next individual, as was made mention to by Steve Drew, my mama raised ugly kids, not dumb ones. And so when it came time to put together this event, I said, well, to make sure we get a big number, let's go for the Crawfords. Because their claim to fame, even though they grew up on James and we grew up on Sherman, their claim to fame was that we had 9 and they had 13.
12.
12? Where did I get that 13 from? Donald, probably. But again, Bob Crawford and I go back a long ways. I remember when he was selling papers for the Muslims. Which I knew then he was going to be a heck of a salesman. And I was living in Atlanta. Bob has been involved. It says Yellow Pages salesman in his breakdown, but Bob has always been a person that was willing to get out and promote and do different kinds of sales. And he's always been a jazz buff. And while I was living in Atlanta, Bob attended a conference down there for musicians. And he was pushing a piano player, what was it, Bob?
Eddie Russ.
Eddie Russ. And Bob had albums and everything. Down in Atlanta, he was bound and determined he's going to make a go of this record business. But we got together, and at that time I just went into television sales, and Bob had been involved with Yellow Pages at that time for maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 years. And I don't know if you've ever known television reps, radio reps, but they don't like Yellow Page reps. They steal from them. And so we got into this great argument about which was best. And I'm telling him that the TV, I got color, sight, sound, motion, I can get your message across. All you got in the Yellow Page is just an ad laying there in front of you and doesn't do anything. And he looked at me and said, yeah, but when you pick up the Yellow Pages, you're ready to buy. Now you know why he led the state for 11 years as a salesman. But the individual who is going to introduce him and tell you more about him is another South High grad. And I remember John Matthews from my days as a caddy at Cascade Country Club. John was the only one who wouldn't steal my lunch. But he's also been someone who's been very supportive of the magazine from the beginning. And last year he couldn't make this, but I'm so pleased that he's here this time to present his golf buddy, our golf buddy. And that's just us two, because nobody else can play with him. It's John Matthews.
You got that right. It gives me a great privilege to introduce one of the other Heritage winners and a close friend. I think you mentioned he gives me several strokes. Probably you didn't mention that, but he does. He is a good golfer. Right. Bobby, I was prepared to be very serious, and of course started roasting folks. And so I thought it was very appropriate that I mention a couple of things before getting serious. Bobby, if you remember, we were at a party about 5 years ago when my wife and I were present, and you were the master of ceremony, and you upset a lot of people. You talked about the MC Burton and some of the Ben Logan, the judge. Where's the judge? Judge wasn't judge then, because he probably would have put you under jail for the things you said. My wife isn't here. My daughter is here. She's going to tell my wife. That night, you made some comments about my wife's inability to cook. I told her I would get you one day. I would get you for that. Another thing, Bobby, I trusted you. We drove all the way from Grand Rapids to California, if you recall. I had just received an appointment as Assistant Superintendent of Personnel at Grand Rapids Public Schools, and Bobby said we should celebrate and drive to California together. During that trip to California, we got to Arizona, and Bobby had driven a long part of that trip. I mean, he was in the driving, and I was relaxing, and we were having fun. I looked up, though, he was going about 30 miles over the speed limit. I said, Bobby, please slow up, man. So we kept talking, he kept going 30 over. I said, Bobby, let me drive. It's all right, good drive then, okay? So I started driving, and I was going, I set it at about 10 miles over. And I'll be dang, we got stopped by the police. 10 miles over, right? So I said, Bobby, I'm not speeding, man. Why does the guy stop me? Obviously, I told you to slow up. So you told me. So we get to the policeman comes up and said, I'm Sergeant Gutierrez, and you're speeding. So Bobby Crawford looks at me and said, Sergeant, you're absolutely right. I've been telling this boy for that. I mean, that was before he gave me the ticket. I was getting ready to argue and debate. And so I said, well, Sergeant, it's a good thing you didn't catch us about 20 miles back. Put him under the jail. Anyway, we've certainly had some fun over the years. And Bobby is obviously one of my favorite people. And I think Coy alluded to the fact that he was the top salesperson in the state for Michigan Bell for 11 consecutive years. What you didn't say is that the next person to him, I think, was like 2 consecutive years. So he certainly set the stage for those who came after him, and nobody has really duplicated his feat in terms of the lowest paid salesperson. He started his own business in about 1980, and during that period of time has done tremendously well in advertising field. Bobby also, and Bobby, I took something, I didn't want to read anything, but I did take something off of the biographical sketch that you gave me. Bobby has, and I don't have to tell you, I know personally that Bobby has been big with arthritis. He went to the desert a few years ago because he was having trouble, and he met a very prominent physician by the name of Dr. Bingham. He helped market some arthritis kits and protocol for arthritis, and that became a national. He developed a national foundation as a result of his connection with Dr. Bingham, who unfortunately passed away before Bobby was totally able to market that information, but it is marketed, and I know that someday his work with Dr. Bingham and the foundation will certainly reach fruition. Now, Bobby has had many big clients, and he has written many articles and books in terms of selling and in terms of the arthritis information that I mentioned earlier. But that's not why I think Bobby Crawford is being honored tonight. One of the people I admire greatly, of course, is no longer with us, is Dr. Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King, at some point, I might paraphrase a little, but he said that the measure of a man is not where he stands in times of convenience, but it's where he stands in times of controversy. I can tell you that Bobby Crawford has stood in times of controversy. A very close friend of mine was Dr. John Dow. I worked in the school system, and I know many of you are here tonight who also worked in that school system. At the time, the people were saying, well, we have to do things differently. A number of people, including myself, tried to talk to a few people to see if we could get some assistance in trying to get the board to say that the person made some errors, but the person would be able to continue his employment in the school system. Ends up that we couldn't get people to step forward until Bobby Crawford decided to step forward and talk to us about what transpired and try to get together with people in the community to try to educate them that anything happened at that time. So Bobby stood up in times of controversy, and I know that Dr. John Dow will never forget that, and I think this community is better because of that. There are many other things that I'm aware of. Bobby realized that at some point, we were playing a lot of golf in Grand Rapids and around the country, but there were very few people of color being advertised playing golf for whatever reason. The fact is that Bobby Crawford sent letters to all of the major golf industry people, including the PGA, and he's met with the PGA to talk about that issue. Why not? Why don't we have junior golf programs for young kids? Why don't we see people advertise playing golf? So in Grand Rapids, I guess maybe you can relate to the fact that at some point we had Charlie Sifford in town, and Charlie Sifford, Bobby Crawford sponsored a Charlie Sifford Clubs for Kids, it was called. We took a lot of the inner city kids out to Highlands Golf Course, and we allowed people to come into that golf course who were willing to give up some golf clubs to kids who couldn't afford them. That's one of the things that Bobby Crawford has been involved in. So I know that we don't have a lot of time. And Corey's kicked me several times, but So Bobby, the only thing I left out is that you did, in getting, was very serious, and I'm getting a little loose now. You were a boxer. People don't know that in town. And you always told me that you would probably be the second African American in the Hall of Fame locally for boxing. Now, the first was going to be Johnny Butler, and I think that might happen soon. But I know also I see Floyd Mayweather Jr. here, so you won't be second, son. But the other thing is, Bobby, you had a reputation for, people. Well, I heard there was a Crawford who used to knock people out. Later on, I found out it wasn't really you, Bobby. It was Kate. And Bobby, the other thing before you come up here, because I know you're vindictive, but I want you to remember the court said something first, and Steve was before, afterwards. But there's all that old adage that usually behind every good man there's this good woman. I want to paraphrase that a little and change it and say, in front of this good man is a mighty, mighty good woman. With that, Court, take over.
Thank you, John. I can't say much more other than Bob, if you come up and accept your award as 1997 Heritage Award winner. This is that old house, 517 James.
blew it up and made it look good. As good as it can look these days. Blew it up.
Don't worry, I didn't find some of the other ones, so.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And I can't tell you how I feel to be honored here. I don't know if you remember that old beer commercial a few years ago where these athletes all got up and one guy said, well, I don't know why they had me in this commercial. So I'm saying the same thing here. I don't know why I'm being out here, but I'll take it. Come on. Look at this old house ours, still standing on James Street. It looks as bad now as it looks better. Tough times. I'm going to be serious. It's not going to be the Bob Crawford hour, okay? I'm going to be very humble. But I feel very honored to be here. And any little contributions I've made to the community, I'm thankful that somebody recognized them. And there's some people here that first of all, I think that the person who ought to be receiving the plaque is Mr. Corey Davis, because isn't this a beautiful affair? And I know what it's like, Corey, especially when you try to get your people to work with you. It can be a tough job. In fact, I don't normally tell jokes, but I would like to tell one in regard to that, okay? That, the traditional thing about the white guy, the black guy, and the Jew guy, they're all going to heaven. They're trying to get to heaven. It's politically correct. It's politically correct. And they got up to the Golden Gate, and St. Peter wasn't there. God himself was there. He said, no, you guys can't come in here. He says, they said, well, they begged him. They couldn't con him in. They thought they could con St. Peter in. So they told him, he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. If any one of you can tell me something that I don't already know, I will let you in. So this big, smart, corporate American white guy goes up, and he whispers in his ear, guy looked there and said, no, set him back down. And then the Jewish guy went up there, he whispered in his ear, God said, no, set him back. So this is Willie Jones. Baggy pants, shoes, shirt unbuttoned. Put the guy's ear and yep, set him in, on in. So these two white guys are running back to him and said, hey, guys, look, what in the world could that black guy told you, or what question could he have asked you that you couldn't possibly answer? And God said, well, he asked me, when do you think black people will ever come together? And then use God for this. Well, I am glad to see everybody here. Beautiful crowd, a lot of beautiful people here. And some ugly ones. Not going to get it there. Well, you can understand. You can all, there are other people in the world. Something you can always tell ugly kids come from ugly parents, right? We don't believe it. This time you see an ugly kid, just follow them home. Well, I want to get serious here. Really a beautiful room. A lot of beautiful people. A lot of white people here. Y'all, you sure you're on the right floor? Class reunion, Amway meeting. I bet if this was being held in the city, you all wouldn't be here. And neither would I. Well, it's good to see the Davises here. You know, the Davises and Crawford go back a long ways. Now, you got a lot of young people, and I'm not going to elaborate too far on it, but like you said, there was 12 Crawfords and 9 Davises. And that time, everybody knew everybody in the community, and you see Mrs. Davis walking down the street, Anna, walking down the street with her stomach big. Teresa Crawford walking down there with her stomach big. It was a matter of who was going to have the most kids. And we won. And this old house we lived in, this was a 2-bedroom house. Well, 14 people, that's how lived in this house. This house, the rats and roaches had 40 eating a week. We moved this house, I'm serious. There wasn't no bathtub, wasn't no furnace, no hot water heater. And we all had to stand around and get some water in the morning before we got ready to go to school. And put on this pot-bellied stove and get warm and go to school. No bath. You couldn't go to the bathroom. When Friday did get a bathtub, you could use it. It was always full of dirty diapers. And so we came from before family. Davis back in the, it's hard to believe, that's so long ago. And that's, I see Eleanor, and I hadn't seen Eleanor in 40 years. And one for Eleanor, dear. One for you, Eleanor would be the one. But she's a little older, considerably older, a little older than But the Davis and Crawford really have been very, very close through the years. Everybody was, in those days, everybody knew everybody. You had everybody, you had parents, you know, and you'd see people going up the street. We were a community, right? And we stuck together. If you come down James Street and you mess with one Crawford, you're going to get the hell beat out of you. And like you said, the toughest one in there was Kay. Kay can whip Sonny Liston. But I remember the Davises were the only ones that have a television set. In 1850, they were the only ones on the east side of Grand Rapids that had a television set. And all of us used to flock down there in that living room and watch that television set. And till then, you don't mind, where's Edgar? Edgar, you don't mind me telling, Edgar had kind of a eye impairment. And Ed used to sit right up next to the TV set. Right? I had to be on it like that. Yeah, man, you'd be better off if you get in the back of the TV set. I stopped going down. Like they only had a 12-inch TV. Ed had a 16-inch head. That's not right. And my good friend Steve Drew, I'm not going to say nothing to you either. Steve struggled along. He lost his first 100 cases as a lawyer. I mean, oh, and hundreds. Then he won one. But I got to tell you, he's a great lawyer now. And certainly he's a great friend. You know, my wife always says that I'm lucky I have more close, you know, really close friends that are there for you when you need it than anybody else. And I'm really very serious. I do have that. And I got to tell you, the one guy, well, one of the three of them right here in this room that I love very dearly, and they all sit at the same table. One is Mr. John Matthews. Even though he does speed, and I had to see that he was breaking the laws of the state, and I had to see that he got what he deserved. John and I have been arguing for years and years and years, and you think we hate each other on the office. And the other guy I'd like to honor, I think, to Steve Drew, even though he's a couple of years younger than I am, I still feel that if I need anything, I can always depend on those guys. And there's another man that came all the way up here from Miami, Florida, actually from Atlanta now. The fellow there, when you see that globe with it shining, Mr. George Gilbert. Would you stand up, George Gilbert? George and I went down when I was selling Yellow Pages, and I'll talk about that for just a second. And he, back in the affirmative action time, you know, mid-70s, and everybody was having to get their quota of good blacks. So I was being asked to go all over the place, so I went down to Atlanta, and George said, I just want to go alone. I've never been to Atlanta, Miami, I'm sorry, not Atlanta. So George flew down there with me, and he ended up getting the job, and I came back. And he's been down there ever since. George is a what do you call it regional director of Yellow Pages Advertising in Atlanta. He has about 300 people working for him, and he's doing great. Just doing great. I would like to introduce my family, if I could, real quick.
We don't have much time.
Well, only half of them came, so I right, it was your family invited. We'd be here this Saturday. But I would like to introduce my sister Kay, Sonny Liston. Stand over and go and stand up here. And my other sister Sue, say lovely, wonderful sister Sue, who I never argued with in my life. Stand up, Sue, let me see you. And my other little sister Jackie.
The wonderful one.
Wonderful. See the other Crawford here? I'll leave it done. You see anybody on this? Okay, and then I have my two sons here, Barry and David. Would you guys just stand up for a second? You may be here with me. And then my jazzy, beautiful daughter, Sarah. Would you stand up? Miss Jazzy? And then the love of my life. 31 years that he put up with me, my arguing. We argue every day in the 31 years. She's in here with me. And without her, I wouldn't be here today, and there's no doubt about that. That's my beautiful wife. Please stand up. I just want to say that somebody asked me, I don't know if you saw the article in the paper, but I just would like to talk about that on a serious note for a minute. There's a lot of young people here, and I firmly believe that you can accomplish whatever you want to. I've just been the type of guy, young Mayweather, you're going to be champion one of these days. Where's
He tried to watch two of his opponents that are boxing tonight in Las Vegas.
So we better get on with this. But anyway, I started with Michigan Bell in 1966. And I just want to tell you how I got there. A lot of people have asked about this story. And actually, I was getting my phone shut off. I told my daughter not to answer the phone. So I had been studying all these books, how to win friends and influence people and all that stuff, because I wanted to be a good salesperson. And I went down there and I told this guy off. He said, I've never been told off that nice in my life. He said, you ought to come work for us. So I went down there and applied for a job in what they call equipment sales, making $10,000 a year. In 1866, $10,000 a year was a lot of money. So I went down there and I took a test. A couple of days later, the guy called me up and said, you didn't pass. Now, you know when you pass the test, right? You know 2 and 2 is 4, 18, 16. I passed the test, and so I got mad. I went down to the Urban League and saw the director down there and told him that I had a problem. So he got out of their case. He was a heavyweight at that time. And they called me back up the next day and said, Mr. Crawford, we made a mistake. You did pass the test. However, you didn't get a high enough score to qualify to go to our school in New York where we betrayed you. So therefore, you still don't get the job. So I said, well, you know what you can do with the job. So, but then I got an anonymous call the next day. The guy says, go down to the elevated office. There's a job waiting there for you. So I went down the elevated office, all cocky and arrogant, and talked to the district manager, and he said, you must be crazy. We ain't got no job here for you. And I said, but sir, and I pleaded my case. He said, I'll tell you what, you go see John Kennard, and if he wants to hire you, fine, but we're not hiring. So I go see John Kennard. Now here's what we consider part of the simple stereotype, typical white man at that time with his wingtip shoes, $10 Kmart shirt, suit, off the door, that's what you call it, off the door. Okay, and he got his wing tipped up on this thing, and he said, what do you want? I mean, he reacted that way. He says, Mr. Crawford, you don't qualify for this job any kind of way. He said, you don't have a degree. You don't have the credit, which is very true. He said, you don't have a sales background, which was very true. And he said, you don't even have a decent car. And that was very true. My car, you can look down at the floorboard and you can see the street. So he said, well, I'll check you out. So I come back a couple days later, he called me in, he's got some feet up there again. And he goes through all the stuff again. You don't qualify. And I'm just ready to cuss him out. He said, Bob, I believe if I give you this job, you'll be the best yellow pages salesman we've ever had. He said, well, therefore, if you wanted the job, it's yours. Till this day in my lifetime, that's the greatest shock I ever had. And there's a man who didn't see color. He didn't talk about some of my best friends of color and all that. He just did it. And he helped, I'm very serious now, he helped a lot of people out that black people in Michigan Valley don't even know that he helped them. And that's why stuff like this come together is what's going to take for us to get over as a family of people. I mean, to me, family is the most important thing in the world. The family community, my own family, my objectives for life now, whatever little life I got left, and this is going fast, is I want to see my children and my nieces and my nephews and my grandchildren be the best people they can be. And all I ask them to do is, I know some of you don't think I'm very religious. I got my own religion. I believe in God as much as anybody else. But I think you find God in here. Okay? I say to you young people, look within yourself. Find what's inside. And then develop yourself a plan. I don't care how much you want to be, whatever you want to be, you got to have a roadmap. You can't just say, I want to do something and do it. And older or younger people, find out who you are first and what's inside of you and what you can do. And don't ever give up. My daddy taught me never give up. And I never give up. Even now, old as I am, I think some of my best accomplishments are ahead of me. And when I was fighting, I didn't think, the first few years I didn't do very well. And I went in the Army and I had a water fight and I lost the next fight. And I said, you know what, everybody says I'm good. I ain't let nobody beat me again. And I had 27 more fights and I won the All-Army Championship and nobody beat me. And as Mr. Wayweather is still here, take that, I just didn't think, like Michael Jordan didn't think, nobody could beat me when he's got that basketball in his hand. And I felt when I was selling, that nobody could beat me. And even if they could beat me, I'm going to be the very best person I could be. And as far as, and we all know how we want to be treated. It's easy to know how to treat other people because we all know how we want to be treated. If we just treat other people the way we want to be treated, we'll be fine. And I'm saying to all of you in here, white, black, green, gray, look within inside of yourself. Try to be the very best person you can, and to my own family, and own children, just be the very first person you can be, and give it 100%. When you give it your best, you got nothing else to give. And again, I want to thank all of you for coming here, and I want to thank you especially, Mr. Davis, my dear friend, for honoring me. So I can keep this for the show.
You can keep that.
Thank you.
You'll get a bill later. That was very well put, Bob. And again, that's Bob Crawford. And to try to sum him up in words will take a while, but I've got just a couple to say about him. He's a hell of a man, and I'm glad he's my friend. The third honoree this year is a person that, and that's what the Heritage Awards are about. And Ron Sneed is about to tell us about Mr. Captain, retired Captain George Johnson Jr. Ron Sneed. You call him problem and answer, but I want to say.
It's as brief as you don't ever see Bobby Crawford on a microphone. I know it's getting late, so I'm going to try to keep it easy. It's always good to see people together, as I call it, Mrs. Collier, Mrs. Curtis. We had an extended family when we were growing up in our neighborhoods. If you did something wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Crawford would give you a spanking. And you had another one come when you came home for embarrassing the family. We've lost that. And that's what's the problem, I think, with us right now, Bobby, when you talk about things that we've lost. That is one of them. Always looked up to you, Bobby, because I remember my 5th birthday, you got your second car. And we always did look up to you because when we had dogs and cats, the Crawfords always had chickens.
Some of Grand Rapids' outstanding African Americans were honored tonight during the presentation of the second annual Heritage Awards.
The awards, sponsored by Breakthrough Magazine, were presented tonight at Bridgewater Place to recognize people who have helped their communities. One of the honorees was the state's top salesperson for Yellow Pages for 11 years straight. Bobby Crawford said he was surprised that anyone noticed.
Over the years, I've tried to touch some people's lives as well as make things better for myself and my family, and I didn't think anybody paid any attention to me.
But pay attention they did. Crawford and 4 other Grand Rapids natives were honored for their contributions. Congratulations to them.